We appreciate you joining us for the fifth call from Michigan. Thank you all there at Michigan, Sue Morrissey, President, for getting this educational opportunity started. And special thanks, Mary, for organizing so much of this and helping me with the IT. Appreciate it. Mary Linden and Carol Baldwin sends out all of our notices. So thank you. Dana Roberts is standing by to help us with IT and push out information later in the week. So it takes a team and a village. And I thank you all very, very much. So thank you for that. Our next call will be the second Tuesday of the month in May, and we'll have a conclusion to this series, which we're looking forward to. That'll be fun. So send out notices and let everybody know and join in. And let's start for Understanding Collection, Western Dressage. Understanding collection is something that's really important. And today we really want to talk about what collection really is, as opposed to so many times people discuss headset and collection versus headset and engagement versus hawk action. Collection truly is uphill with power, engaged on the bit and through. And here's a great picture. Thank you so much, of Joanne Williams. I sent out a call to lots and lots of people in the last month. Please, would you let me use some more photographs? Because we wanted to have new ones and different horses in different situations. But this is Joanne on Wharf, one of my favorite horses. Look at this, soft ears, soft eyes, mouth closed. Holy cow, uphill. And this is collected canter at the end of canterlope lengthening. He's standing on his hind leg. This is all compressed, so much suspension off the ground. But this is what collection looks like, that the SI is working. There's a compression of the hind legs taking weight. The thoracic is uphill. And even though you can't see the horse's back, you feel like it's rounding under this Western saddle. That's what we're looking for. And collection is a byproduct of everything else, of all the other spokes on the training wheel going right, with the rider organizing it. Collection is characterized by stable uphill balance, not momentary and not for a second, but primarily the horse uphill, exhibiting use of the thoracic, showing continuous impulsion, engagement, which is the flexing and compressing of the SI and the hind leg joints. All of those work together to take weight behind. It's the ability to stay on the bit and or in connection, any of the vernacular that we want to use in our Western dressage terms, and you will be producing cadence and ease of rideability if you are exhibiting collection. An incorrect use of the word collection, which comes to us sometimes from other Western divisions, and it's important for us to keep educating our members, our new members, our riders, our trainers, our judges, all of us, is that taking up the reins, retaking the reins, shortening the reins, asking the horse to come around, or putting the horse on the bit, or asking the horse for connection, or putting the horse in a frame or a headset, that is not collection. And it is not collecting up the horse, because collection is a byproduct of what happens. So all of these descriptions, taking up the reins, retaking the reins, shortening the reins, that's what the terms are. When you are on a free walk and you take your reins back up, you're taking the reins up and you're putting the horse back in connection, or on the bit if you're using a bit, if you prefer to use that word. And we do use that phrase because on our test level 2 and up, it says reliably on the bit and in connection. And we do put horses in connection in Western dressage. Why? Because when a horse is in the right balance and when they give through the pull and neck, using the nuchal ligament correctly and reaching forward towards connection, then a horse uses its back properly and it bascules the top line. and we go back to that picture of Joanne, we have the feeling that this horse's back is rounding up. And that is what you're looking for, which is so cool. So a horse can be round, meaning on the bit. It can be in connection on the bit without being collected, in that it is not producing collection. Horses may be in connection or on the bit in a headset, but if they don't have enough impulsion, balance, engagement, uphill or throughness to produce collection, then they're still in working gaits. Horses who are beginning training in working gaits are generally in a horizontal balance, or they're just beginning to be uphill, and they generally exhibit very little collection. If they do, if a horse, let's say a level 1 horse, is on the bit or in connection, as we say, and it's trucking along, the judges feel like it has lots of impulsion, it's doing a really great job in level 1, it may show moments of collection, and that's when the trainer, the rider, and the judge is thinking, wow, this horse is coming along momentarily, its thoracic lifted up, it compressed its hind legs, it looks uphill for a minute or two, or it can even hold it for a few steps. And that's what we're looking for when we're thinking that these horses are ready to go to level 2. So collection is the compression or the gathering of the power, the compression of the hind legs and the gathering of power. And it is the utilization of this thrust and power. And connection or on the bitness is a necessary and required component of collection, because the idea of compression means that there's the front and the back. So when the back, the hind legs, are an engine and the rider asks for impulsion and they compress the hind legs and they push against the ground. If there's nothing in the front, if you don't have a half halt, if the horse just strings out, then that thoracic will probably stay down or be down because there's nothing to correct it, to bascule the back, and you have no compression. So we've all seen wonderful exhibits of riders looking like they're doing some dressage work with absolutely no bridles. And almost all of those horses will do some flying changes and sometimes sort of some canter pirouettes or also Western dressage. But and they take, a lot of them have good thoracic muscles and they're up, they can even be uphill and they are trained to take weight behind. But what you'll see is they're not really on the bit because they're not being ridden to any kind of a round connection. There isn't a connection of aids. And at some point, you will see some kind of failure in the program, in that they're lovely and they're exhibiting some really cool things. And we're very impressed that they're capable of riding them without bridles and so on. But the structure of the movements that we require, like shoulder in, half pass, and whatever, they may not be able to bend them because there are no reins. And the horses, the energy escapes forward because you don't have another side to compress the horse into, whether it's self-compression or whether it's rider connection. Is we're always looking for self-carriage, but that's part of our process of becoming collected, is that the horses come into a rounder frame, because when they use the nuchal ligament to stretch themselves forward, they bascule the back. And that's what we're looking for. It's in those frames or outline or posture. I think posture is the most correct word, that the horse is ergonomically carrying itself so that it will work without injury to itself. Engagement is a combination of impulsion, remembering that impulsion is thrust against the ground, and the willingness and ability to flex the SI, which is right here, and compress the hind leg joints to take weight and compress down onto the leg, which means that they spring themselves forward or they spring up, one or the other. And if the horse is being ridden, this does involve their posture, which we discuss as connection. When horses show optimum engagement, when a horse engages and they show optimum engagement, they reach forward with their hind leg as far as they push back, and they take weight behind, compressing the hind legs, flexing the SI, and they produce power, impulsion, which they can use to push themselves forward. So we have lengthen jog, lengthen lope, or in collected gaits, they cover ground and they show cadence, which is higher spring, more suspension off the ground. So conversely, when we see a horse that has no suspension in the jog and barely lifts its legs or feet off the ground, we know that that horse isn't producing a lot of engagement and is not exhibiting collection, or because it is barely clearing the ground. This is a little sidebar, but I want to discuss it with you because there's a lot of confusion about collection. In general, across the world, there are 3 styles of movements of horses which are taught to in-hand, or sport horse judges use these, and it's important to talk about, but horses break down into 3 very large general categories, and these are very, very general, so we don't need to get all hung up on them, but it gives us an idea of what we're talking about. Baroque movement, we all know what that looks like. It's high, a lot of knee action. Horses are sort of like PREs, that kind of a horse. Horses with low straight movement, more like maybe warm bloods. Not warm bloods. Like thoroughbreds, quarter horses. Combination movers are horses that step forward as far as they push back, and they have some natural knee and hock action. So these 3 types of movements, if you could just be sure everyone's muted for me, please. In dressage, Western dressage, we are trained constantly. If good quality movement is exhibited, a judge is not to prefer any particular style of movement, and no type of movement is more rewardable than another. What we're getting at about our training wheel is that with attention to the training wheel, all types of gait movements and all types of conformations can produce harmonious, balanced, and riding, and they can produce better gaits. And that's what the training wheel behind me is all about, is that no style of horse is more preferred, because the work of the training wheel will improve all conformation and gait types. And a judge is not supposed to be looking for a particular gait type. They are looking for a horse which has improved itself, and the rider has improved the horse and strengthened it and suppled it through the use of the training wheel. Unless a horse is unsound, every conformation style of horse with an asterisk is capable of collection. And that asterisk is that we are discussing equines, horses, ponies, mules, gaited horses, because all of these are included in all of this. Collection does not look any different in gaited horses than it does in walk, jog, lope horses. They still compress, they still take weight, they are still engaged, they are still on the bit. So are mules, so are ponies, all horses. So unless a horse is unsound, Western dressage work with attention to the training wheel will help to produce collection. There are several styles of ways that horses use their hind legs, which are not optimum. They are not engagement. Now, down here to the right is a picture of optimum engagement, and we're going to just talk about these other three types of styles of use of the hind leg. It's important to recognize these because you have to understand how engagement works and what it looks like when it's good. But that may conversely mean that you have to recognize what's going wrong so that as trainers and riders and judges, we can recognize it, but we can also correct it. Pendular movement is an inactive and straight hind leg, and it's characterized by the leg appearing to be quite straight, and the leg is pendular, meaning swinging like a pendulum, because the leg swings more like from the hip. It shows very little closing of the hind legs. It's interesting that pendular engagement or pendula hawk action, I should say, because it isn't engaging, it can track very short. And a lot of horses that move like this, the hocks do not bend, the hocks and the stifles, and the horses short track. But amazingly enough, there can be huge horses with long legs that actually overtrack. But when you look at their legs, they're not carrying weight behind. They're swinging a very, very long, tall horse leg forward from the hip area. But they are not compressing the SI and hind legs, and so they are not engaging. This style of hawk action is frequently seen in conjunction with lack of thoracic sling work, and it results in low shoulders and low withers, and the horses are frequently on the forehand. Now, many horses start out in the basic movements looking like this, in this balance, but horses can be in this balance and still have good, correct engagement and take more weight behind. And as this style of horse or conformation of horse develops, they do go uphill. They do use their thoracic and they can improve, and they do improve. They're one of the most dramatic types of conformations of horses to carry weight and improve. There are many horses that you see that push back out behind in the hocks, and it's characterized by the leg it appears to be incredibly active. But when you really look at how the horse tracks, you see that the hind leg does not step past the stifle when it steps down, and that the hind leg behind is frequently way behind the buttocks. The key to recognizing that the hocks are out behind is the leg doesn't step under the body as far as it pushes back. And frequently it doesn't step past its own stifle. When this is happening, the back is often low, although amazingly enough, some of these horses have incredibly high neck carriages. And you can kind of get the feeling that here, this horse is actually not engaged, its back is down, its thoracic isn't working, but it appears to be sort of, maybe possibly, on the bit headset, sort of. And amazingly enough, some of these horses sort of look like this. And judges are very careful with this style of horse to be very clear to see, are the hind legs truly carrying? Is the SI flexing? Because this head and neck set can be deceiving. And you can see that the thoracic is down and the back is down. Amazingly enough, this type of horse tends to have a very flashy front leg extension and often a hyperextension of the foreleg below the fetlock. Fetlock. And it's not supported. This front leg is not supported by engagement behind. A lot of times the front legs are really active in the lengthened jog, and the hind legs are out behind, and the back is down. Gotten together, ridden correctly with use of the training wheel, keeping this horse's hocks under, keep working to get the thoracic up, this type of horse can make amazing strides and produce collection. Sewing machine is pretty much self-explanatory. It's a horse that has very active hind legs, and they go up and down, and they go up and down fast and flashily, and they're very busy. And they give the impression to people of very active hind legs, but that surprises people because, oh, he was very active with his hind legs, but they don't actually produce thrust or forward ground cover. The legs go up and down, but they're short tracking and they don't compress the hind legs. So kind of the back down, the SI and haunch kind of high. And again, horses, this type of conformation of horse can have a very high set on neck, but may not be using their back as ergonomically as we would like in quite the correct balance. They need to produce power to cover ground, and they need to sit through the SI, croup, and hocks, and they need to cover more ground. So sometimes this type of horse, while they're very active, they don't tend to cover so much ground, not always tracking up, and they actually can propel themselves forward with their forehands. Once again, this style of horse correctly worked through the training wheel can produce real, true, attractive connection and collection. Thank you again, Joanne. She just sent me a lot of really good pictures of Worf, and I was like, he shows exactly what we're looking for. So here she is, beautiful show outfits. What I like about this horse, soft eye, relaxed ears, mouth closed. Wow, Joanne just sits there beautifully. And this horse is truly, look at the weight on the left hind leg in the right lead canter. This is collected canter, and we can see once again, if we draw a line from the back to the front uphill, that he is engaged, taking weight, and soft in connection and on the bit. And I don't know, I'm hoping you can see this as clearly as I can, but her inside brain is just about slack. It isn't, because this horse is in self-carriage, but it's just at the bridge of being slack. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's amazing. Every hair on my body standing up right now, because when a horse truly is in self-carriage, and if they are truly bent, this horse has the tiniest little bit of lateral pull flexion, which is correct. She's headed for a corner. The inside rein is just about to go slack. She's on the outside aids. This horse is so soft in this connection. That is self-carriage. And for a moment, this photographer happened to catch this. And this happens a lot. If you can catch it, it's the most amazing thing. Here's the same horse in his extended or lengthened jog. But, technically this horse has in his English tack, this is medium trot. And, this, if we put Joanne's English tack on, this is medium or extended trot, and she'd get a 7.5 or an 8 anywhere on that. Okay, this is where you can really see that this angle of the hind leg matches this angle of the foreleg, and these two angles match. This is how you know that this horse was collected when he took off and is still engaged. All 4 feet are off the ground. He has suspension. If we are only asking for lengthened jog in Western dressage, if we are, it is my opinion that this could not be less than an 8 and possibly higher, 9 or 10, because this is more than just a lengthening of a small jog. This truly is medium or extended trot for a very good score, but this horse is truly in balance, on the bit, balanced, and this horse does show us that he stretches towards his bridle, stays in connection, and uses his neck. He uses his nuchal ligament, and his neck muscles are very, very soft, but they are engaged to pull his thoracic up, and he's pulling his back up. And this is what a horse should look like as it reaches forward into a lengthened jog or a medium extended trot in either division. That's what it should look like. Here we go. These are some wonderful, wonderful examples, and I want to thank these people for being willing to send me these beautiful pictures from all of the Georgia calls and gave us permission for the Michigan call to use these. These are folks who send in pictures of basic horses and intro horses, and I thank you all sincerely. These are what basic and intro horses look like, and they are in horizontal balance, reaching towards the bits. Here's this beautiful mule, truly on the bit and in a basic balance. And look how soft that rein is. She has her outside rein in connection, which we know that the outside rein keeps the horse in the connection. The inside rein produces bend, and this is just very soft connection. Also, his Kim's horse, she's let us look so many times at her horse and sent a lot of really great pictures. Thank you all very much. And once again, in a perfectly nice horizontal balance. And that is what, this is what basic and intro horses look like. And these horses are really engaged, and they are showing good impulsion for intro and basic because the hind legs are separated. You can see thrust, they're moving forward, they're not short tracking, they're in good balance. Now, as they progress through the levels, and through this series of calls, which we began with level 1 and level 2, and then we've talked about the riders and the horse biomechanics, and now we're talking about, we talked about bend last month, and now we're talking about collection. So we've been through every spoke. These are the horses that, this is what it looks like in the beginning, and you have just seen the pictures of the collection. What's important to understand, though, is that these are perfect. This is perfect balance for intro and basic, although other horses maybe naturally have conformation that is already more uphill. This is very good for our level, and there may be horses that are naturally more uphill. But if you see a horse in level 5 or level 4 in this balance, doing blind changes and canter lope pirouettes, they're not in collection. This is not the collected balance of level 5. And it is, these horses, these equines are in working gaits, because collection begins when there is more use of the thoracic and closing of the hind leg joints. All of these horses are doing a great job propelling themselves forward, and this is the preparatory work that has to occur. If you don't get this, you won't get the rest of the spokes of the wheel. So it has to look like this to start with. The lengthened jog, which is the compression of the hind legs, the thrust suspension, and with the pull, the highest point will, and we will have, exhibiting engagement, uphill balance. This is achieved from collection. Joanne just showed you on Wharf. Here's another horse, which I've drawn the angles on so that you can understand compression of the hind legs. And this horse well off the ground again, but good connection. Horse is slightly in front of the vertical, ears soft, eyes soft, mouth closed. The muscles of the horse look usable, supple, but they don't look stringy. They don't look tight. They don't look tense. And there's obviously a lot of power here and suspension. And how does that occur? It occurs because before the rider asked for this lengthening of jog, there was collection, there was compression of these hind legs, arching of the back, and now we have really the pull, the highest point. And if we look at the saddle, we don't feel like the back is down. We feel like the back is definitely carrying and springing. And that's what we're looking for. Here are two more moments, different pictures of collected jog and horses taking weight and showing what is the beginning of cadence. And we don't talk much about cadence in Western dressage, but it is listed in our tests, and it's listed everywhere between level 2 and level 5. and it is listed in the general impressions. And how about under harmony, it says athletic expression and free-flowing performance. It's all there. So what we're trying to express and what is very important is that the components of collection are all the same. When I showed you the different horse styles and how their hind leg movements tend to have to do with their conformation, it was to train you so that when you began to see the ways that different horses' conformations respond, or how they look before the training wheel corrects their balance, because all of those conformational styles of horses, the more that they're worked in correct Western dressage, the more they look like these horses, even though their conformation is different. Because what it does is it compresses the hind legs, it uses the SI, it puts the weight over the hind leg, it lifts the thoracic, the neck lifts up, it correctly reaches forward to the bridle, it lifts the back, and then all of a sudden, horses that seem to have different conformation are beginning to move like combination movers, and they're beginning to show optimum engagement. And that means that they're showing expressions of collection, and they can hold it for longer periods of time, and they develop strength while doing that. And this is accomplished with the use of the training tree and including the bending exercises that we talked about last month, how horses bend, and including shoulder in, half pass, and all of the lateral work helps us to develop this. So these horses that are showing acceptable impulsion for intro and basic are in horizontal balance. And the collection begins with more use of the thoracic and the closing of the hind legs. Here's a question which everyone asks. Is it possible to be doing shoulder and half pass, line changes in a basic, meaning a basic level frame or balance or connection, or in horizontal balance? Yes, it is. It is absolutely possible to do every exercise in working gaits, and almost all trainers teach shoulder in and half pass and working walk and leg yield. And flying changes, when we start flying changes, are generally done in working low, not super collected. But is the horse engaged or producing collection when they're in the working gait? No, and they're not in the balance that we're expecting for a competitor to exhibit in level 2 through 5. And we want to be clear with people that if they bring in horses in level 2 through 5 in these balance or in these types of connection, that they've done a good job introducing their horse into our lower levels. And we're trying to begin this whole series of these calls for Michigan were about educating all of us to get our horses from here to level 2 through 5, to that looking like and understanding how to develop the engagement, the bending exercises necessary to supple the horses, to have enough impulsion, to develop the thoracic, to produce collection, which is a byproduct of all the other spokes of the wheel. Here are a couple more pictures of just different angles of the horse. This horse is just in the first turn, first step of a turn. You see she's just past 8. She's right in the first turn of a corner. There's about a 2-degree turn here in the torso. The horse has flexed its shoulders. It has the smallest amount of lateral pole flexion you can imagine. Ears are up, eyes soft, mouth closed, rider quiet. Horse is beginning to bend, and you can see it because their shoulders are coming around. Here's shoulder in, again, pole highest point, and I had all of these lines drawn in here so you could see that the horse is on 3 tracks, the rider is centered. Uphill balanced, has lateral pole flexion, eyes look soft, ears look good. Muscles, we're looking at horses with muscles that don't look tight. That's throughness, that they are willing and able to do this. Don't we love the word harmony? That helps us. So compression is one of those things that can get away from you. Thank you again for these riders for submitting pictures and for allowing me to take 1 second, which in 1 second more, they might be perfect, but for a moment, I have a teaching moment and I have to say, hey, can you send me a picture that's not quite perfect? Because I need a moment to show not perfect and a little more perfect. And thank you for all the people willing to do that. Especially Kim sent me a lot of really great pictures of her horse. And I love, by the way, I love her show outfit. They're always just on this horse. This is a pretty, very pretty horse. This horse is amazing in that here's Worf again. He's at the end of extended canter coming up towards collection, and Joanne has just given the half halt. And how do I know that? Because she's for 1 second, just for 1 second, slightly in front of that vertical. She's just got her leg on. You can see that leg just move, and she's just about in 1 second going to sit back to right there, because this horse's, she's in the process of giving the up half halt, and this horse's forearm is coming up, and he's beginning to sit on this, and here he is round to the bridle. So she is compressing him at the end of this lengthening. For Kim, it's a little different story. She had her collection, and no fair, because this horse is a level 2 horse, this is a level 5 horse, so let's just go there. Not really fair to compare, but the only really interesting good pictures I had, because her husband's such a wonderful photographer, so thank you so much. She obviously had a lot of power when she began her lengthening. She has a tremendous separation of the hind leg, and her horse is going uphill. But because she didn't keep this horse quite so much in connection, he's escaping a little bit from her. And she admitted to me when I called her, because I said, could I ask you a question? Because in a moment, in a picture, this could just be a moment, and in a second, this looks different. And she was so kind, she's so honest, and we learned so much. She's so kind to allow us to talk about things. I said, I had the feeling that this horse really took off, did a great lengthening and everything, but you lost the connection a little bit. And as you came back into the collection, that you had trouble compressing her because she got a little off the bit. And she said, yes. And then, but she was kind of like, oh man, a judge can see that from one still photograph, but it's thousands of hours of looking at things, folks. But the horse, a nice lengthening, starting uphill. We don't have as much uphill. If she could have kept a little more compression as she pushed him forward, she would have engaged the thoracic some more. So horses have to stay a little bit in connection as they lengthen. It doesn't mean that they're not going to lengthen their top line as they lengthen. They do that. But if this gets away from the rider, then it's like squirting toothpaste out of a tube. You lose control of it. It didn't go on the toothbrush. And that happens to all of us. That it happened to me before. One time was in the ring, got clear down to the end of the lengthening, and the horse had kind of bolted on me and took off. And I had to stand up in the stirrups and pull and say, whoa, because I thought I was leaving the ring. I would have been eliminated. It was awful. And it was terrible. And luckily the transition was a different mark, because the lengthening got a good mark, but the transition was, I don't know, 4 or 5. It was terrible. And I got it back together and turned down the center line, and the center line was an 8. But we all have this happen. It gets away from us. And for a moment, it got away from her. But this shows us compression, expansion, compression, expansion. So this is what we're thinking about all the time. Again, one more picture of Joanne, because we should finish with the idea, and then I'm going to take then we're going to talk about things if you want, folks, because we're going to take questions. But uphill engagement on the bit and the circle of aids that we're asking the horse to come from the back to the front. We're trying all the time to ride from the back to the front. And we're looking for these horses to be happy in their work, for the muscles to look smooth, the mouth to be closed, the eye to be soft, if all of this is possible, if it's possible. And there are moments when it's not. It's moments when we have a disturbance or we have the tail moving, but today we were trying to describe the best possible outcome of how it's going to look. Okay, so discussion and questions. And I know I have folks out there that would like to comment or would like to go back to a picture. Anybody would like to comment or can I thank everyone again who was willing to send photographs? Thank you so much. There's Joanne. Wouldn't you like, how about a comment there? I see you. Are you hiding out in the back, Joanne?
I am hiding and enjoying everything that you're saying, because I think it's really important. We see, as judges, we see so many people that do the second level and up and in the working gaits, and they really don't understand what the collection is all about. You know, it's great that they try, but
Yeah.
they have to develop the horse, and it takes a lot of time. I had an old European instructor who would often say, the tricks are easy, it's the gaits that are hard.
That's something to talk about, because as trainers, we know that actually most horses, even a young horse that's developing fast, that's strong, like a 5 or 6-year-old horse is a very strong horse, and they're athletically can be quite supple, and they're smart and they're quick and they're still young. So, and if they haven't been ridden and they're being ridden by a professional trainer, you expect a young horse could possibly move along. And yet 2 years, I think, from level 1 to level 2 real competency, 2 years. Like you can't be riding level 1 and then, oh, well, I finished that, I'll just go into level 2. It takes 1 whole year to learn shoulder in, renvers, punches in, and most riders have to learn that in working gaits and primarily in the walk. Like the riders have to learn the movements, the horses have to learn the movements, and then another 6 to 9 months for the horses to be able to do the movements in the working gait and then get enough impulsion and power and engagement and confidence and relaxation so that they actually begin to produce some collection. So the idea that you would move like, well, I did that this year, and the next year I take the next level, and the next year I take the next level, I'm thinking, wow, like that isn't how it goes for me. I see Joanne Coy there. Joanne, wouldn't you like to jump in? She's waving. Okay, you have to take yourself off mute, or Mary has to take you off mute. Can someone take Joanne Coy off mute? I can see her. There you go. Hi,
Hey there.
Hi. I saw you over hiding out in the corner.
Hi there. Yeah. Exactly. I think your point is so true about it's not chronological to move from level to level. It has nothing to do with the calendar year. It has to do with how physically capable your horse is of going up to the next level, and whether or not you understand what the horse is expected to do in the next level. So yeah, it's a process, man. It takes a lot of time and effort, and Joanne Williams shows us, how wonderfully strong her horse is and capable to do those movements.
Yes, and we're lucky to have these level 5 pictures when Worf was mature, and Joanne, he was at least in his 2nd year of this kind of level work, right? These pictures were not his 1st year at this
That is correct.
Yeah,
And
that's why it looks so good.
the solid chestnut with the turquoise saddle blanket, that's Bazinga. And she was just barely starting second level.
Have I got Bazinga on there now? That's Dwarf,
Let
and
me
this
look.
is Bazinga. This is Bazinga.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh my
Yep,
gosh, I thought that
that's
was
right.
Dwarf. I mistook that for
Yeah.
Dwarf. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So
Nope,
that's a level 2 horse
that's
looking
my
at me.
pony.
Wow.
You know, I
Great.
think people also have to remember that there isn't this big chasm and your first level working gaits and then your second level collection, and you're staying in that degree of collection forever. And the collection is constantly being evolving and improving.
Yeah.
And you take 3 steps forward and you get the most powerful, wonderful, floaty gate on Monday, and on Tuesday nothing happens. It's always evolving, it's always changing, and there's a huge difference between a baby level 2 just learning collection to a level 5 horse, which hopefully can hold that collection through the entire test.
And it's not even the physical willingness. I think sometimes some horses have real physical abilities, but they emotionally need the discipline of, oh, I have to pay attention and work for the whole 7 or 8 minutes of a test, or how about a whole work session? Horses develop, mentally and physically, and all of the cross training that most of our Western people do. Our Western dressage people tell me that most of us do other things. We go trail riding and we do some cattle work and we do working equitation and we do obstacles and we do all kinds of stuff. We have interesting people out there, but I think that helps us with our Western dressage too, because our horses have a mental break from work. They do other work. And I think the other work is strengthening. It's nothing better than hill work and nothing better than a longer trail ride to relax. And yet that builds up a lot of muscle. And it takes part of what we're talking about with this engagement and the being uphill and on the bit is that some of the time is not the actual training, because the horses can learn things fast. You can get on a horse that's never done a shoulder in, and I can manipulate my body around and manipulate them around and get a shoulder in. You can get them in 3 tracks, but they don't have the strength to hold it, and they don't have the emotional understanding to produce it again every day reliably when you apply the same aids. And so they need time for that strength. And that's a time thing that we still have to keep telling everyone in our division, that, this business of moving up a level a year, well, your horse, it doesn't have enough muscle. It takes longer than you think to put the muscle on to do this work. So be careful, because, our thing is don't injure the horse. Ride with harmony, be sure that they're comfortable and sound, and they have to have a chance. Our whole thought is that we want to elongate their lives. And so that does take a little bit more time in the training. We're really better horsemen because we stick to the training wheel.
Hey,
And
Ida, I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
So when I'm in intro and basic and kind of in horizontal balance, like I ride in a snaffle bit, so a loose ring or an egg butt. When I get up into levels 1 through 5 and getting into more collection and uphill balance, I see a lot of these horses are in a shank bit. Is that something that you need to move up into collection?
It doesn't, because, we have a lot of horses in shank bits that have to do with the fact that they did something else in a shank bit before they did this. And some of the, like, for example, I ride my horse, it has a shank, but it has a snaffle mouthpiece. It's because my horse was being ridden in a double bridle and it was used to FEI work that I'm used to having a snaffle and a curb available to me. For the curb sets a horse's head. So the shank part asks the horse for direct flexion, but a flexible mouthpiece, a snaffle mouthpiece, is what you need for lateral pole flexion. So for me, when I went to a Western bit that has a snaffle mouthpiece but has a shank, that works out to be a combination bit that works like a double bridle. And if I hadn't already had my horse in a double bridle, I probably wouldn't have put my horse in, because the horse I rode before this, Elton John, I took him all the way to intermediate 1 in a snaffle, and it was a single joint, loose ring snaffle. That was it. He was barefoot in a snaffle at intermediate 1, winning in Wellington. And when I put him into Western dressage, I still rode him in that. I took the cavesson off and took the, I just changed the cavesson and put the bit back in. And the horse was still going on a snaffle. So the bitting for us can be what you need. And a lot of horses can go in a snaffle all the way up through level 5, just like they can go all the way to Grand Prix in a snaffle if you want to. The connection changes, like the feel of connection changes a little bit when you have a shank bit. And being able to manipulate a snaffle bit, the turning of a snaffle bit on the side, it's the turning of a snaffle bit that asks for lateral pole rotation. That is easiest to teach in a regular standard snaffle to a horse. And then if you change him into a shank bit, it's hard to get that on a shank bit to start with. So sometimes we have horses that come in, like I've had 2 customers come in that they've been riding their horses in shank bits for a long time, but they really need more lateral pole flexion for a half pass and shoulder in. We put them back into a regular snaffle to teach them lateral pole flexion. Then after that was established, we went back to their shank bit, and it is successful. So selecting bits has a lot more to do with how the bit actually works and what your horse did before and where it's going to. You can have any, any legal bit that you want. You can even be in a Bosal or bitless bridle all the way up. And the gaited horse is the same, mules, ponies, it's all the same. It has a lot more to do with how, if you understand how your tack works and what your horse needs to learn and how you use the bits.
Awesome. Thank you. I do have a question in the chat here as
thanks.
well.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah, so it just says, Sue said, you answered her question about how long it takes from level 1 to level 2, but her next question is, how do you know when it's time to move up?
Well, of course, and being a judge and a trainer is probably, okay, I look at things maybe from a different point of view. We'll ask Joanne Coy if she feels the same way, but we're looking for people in level 1 to be real close to 70s before we even want them thinking about level 2, because if you're not getting a 70 or above at level 1, that horse doesn't have impulsion, continuous impulsion. It may not be on the bit or in connection, or it doesn't have bend, because one of those components is missing because you're not getting 70s. If you were getting 70s, then you're going fairly good, fairly good, fairly good. The horse is regularly on the bit. It has enough impulsion for the work, and it's doing 10-meter turns. And all those 10-meter turns, that's the suppling bend that is the preparatory work for level 2. So if they don't make those 10-meter turns, and you're not saying that they don't have really good bend and they're not on the outside aids, either the rider doesn't have the skill to do it or the horse isn't doing it, or something's wrong. So that part, but the next part is then from there, the trainer and the rider, they begin to do the exercises in level 2. You try to start more, shoulder in, you try it, and you take, and there's a lot of thrashing around, a lot of leg yields and stuff that doesn't happen. And as that progresses, if you can keep up the impulsion and keep the horse going and teach it to do the stuff and get on the bit, you will begin to see the balance change, as Joanne Williams mentioned, that the horses begin to come uphill, they begin to look more uphill, they show moments of showing impulsion and collection. You start looking at your videos and you see, wow, this horse is taking weight and look uphill. I mistakenly thought that was Wharf. I don't know why, but sorry, Joanne, but she says this is Bazinga. Bazinga is a second level horse. And look how uphill she is. But you're looking for that. And when you see that, you know you're ready to go. It's the same thing too. Like, I make my students ride the second level tests at home, or if I'm not with them, they have to tape them and send them to me and stuff. And we send them out to other judges for their opinion. And if they're telling us it's the 58, I'm not telling them to go in the ring. You know, like you have your score from level 1, you start working on level 2, you try out the stuff, you get it trained, you send out for someone else's opinion, they're going to help you. What do you think? Joanne Coy's right there. What do you think, Joanne? Somebody's got to unmute Joanne.
Yeah, I agree. When, there should be some level of mastery or feeling confident in that level by way of scores that reflect that, and whether the rider is comfortable, the horse is comfortable achieving those things in the test. And, the tests are written so carefully that it tells you what it is you should be looking for, the judge is looking for. And when you're, yep, I'm getting good scores, my horse is capable, we're harmonious doing those things, then stick your toe in the water and try the next level. You'll figure out real quickly whether or not you're ready for it or not. It's kind of it's a feeling tone as well as what's evident in your scores and your tests too. Don't feel like just because you've shown first level for a year and a half or so, oh, I better move up because I've done this for a year. We don't condone that or propose that.
Oh, and maybe we should say, because I think you and I think this in our minds, but sometimes when you know something so well, you actually forget to say it. And I think I know I'm forgetting to say it, is that what I'm trying to say is, while you are showing first level and getting 65 to 70, you and your trainer should be practicing for 6 months or a year in the working gaits. You practice the shoulder in, the haunches in, whatever the next level's movements are, you should be trying to practice those. And you should be trying to get a little collection, a little more collection. And meanwhile, you're showing first level, and hopefully you're getting your 70 and higher. But meanwhile, you should be working on level 2, because
Exactly.
you can't finish level 1 and then go in the ring at level 2. You haven't learned all that stuff. And amazingly enough, our tests are written progressively, but every level has new stuff. And FYI, for those of you that are approaching flying changes, trainers will tell you from the time that you try the first flying change, you go to a clinic or whatever, and you pop a horse over one change, and you get lucky. It happens all the time. Somebody takes a horse to a clinician, they can bring a horse to me, I can get them to pop a change over. It happens 90% of the time. And that's the last time you get a change for 6 months. Honestly, in some public place, horses all excited, you can get a change. But from the time you get the first change until you get reliable single changes, and we're not even talking about sequential changes, it is normally a year. So you have to be working on level 4 while you are showing level 3. You won't have the changes for level 4. And you have to be working on sequential changes for a year after you get the single changes, because sequential changes have nothing to do with single changes. First, the horse gets single changes, because then when you start sequential changes, they freak out again and blow their mind and start bolting, and they forget what they're doing because they have a panic attack because this is so different. So Joanne's nodding her head over there.
Mhm.
So this is why we're encouraging you all to be working a little further ahead than you're showing, and get your riding instructors on board, and get into clinics, and be looking at the YouTube channel, trying to study up on what you need to do ahead of time. Utilize every way that you can possibly learn to get yourself ahead, however it's going to be. Get going, because we want you in there. We want you to be successful, and we don't actually want to be giving low scores. We want to give big scores. All right.
Right.
Got any more questions? More in the chat.
There was one in the chat. It's a little off topic, but if you have time, we could talk about it.
Sure.
This Teresa says, this is a bit off topic, but last week we touched on errors, walk, steps, and move off in level 1. Should that be considered an error? And then how does WD 126.6a address repeated errors?
Okay, well, when the horse comes into a halt, like say at level 1, it's supposed to go directly halt to jog. So Joanne Coy is right.
Yeah.
And Joanne
Yep.
Williams is also a judge. It really annoys me at level 1 if a horse doesn't jog off, because they have already been in 2 levels asked to jog. There is 1 halt, jog forward in intro, and then in basic. So you've got 2 levels of doing this. There's really no excuse for this. It's not technically an error, but man, it annoys me. I don't like it. What do you think, Joanne Coy?
Oh yeah, that will definitely impact your score. Yes.
Even if it was square and straight, I'm kind of hard on that. Are you kind of hard on that? I am.
Yeah, they need to go. That's the directive. They have to go right from the halt to the jog without walk.
So, and Joanne Williams, so let's chime in. Is that close to a 4 in level 1?
If they've done everything else really nicely, the halt is square, it's balanced, the horse is on the bit, I may go from an 8.5 down to a 7. But
holy cow, I don't
if
think
it's a
that's
level
enough down,
5
Joanne.
horse, okay, well then maybe
I don't know. We better ask.
going to be a
Joanne
little
Coy.
more generous.
Well,
But in level 5 and level 4, even level 3, yeah, that's approaching a 4, definitely.
oh, you guys would be loved in DR if you did that, because it's a way bigger deduction, because you did not perform what is requested in the test. Like, so that would,
Yeah,
what
it
do
would
you
be
think?
It's
right. It would be if it's not direct, the transition's not direct to jog, it can't be higher than a 5.5.
Yeah.
So it'd
Okay,
be a
sorry
4.5
about
to-
that, Joanne Williams. You're generous.
well,
We all want to ride for you.
that's all right. I will adjust my thinking.
Yeah.
So watch out, people.
Yeah, because they've
And
had you.
it's something I am constantly working on with my students and my horses.
Yeah, it's true. This is a tricky thing, but they've had 2 levels to get this right, and it's not that hard to do. So basically, they didn't meet the requirement. It's sort of like if you go lope and then you jogged and walked when it's supposed to be lope walk.
Oh yeah,
It's not, you didn't perform so
it's a
then,
simple change.
yes, exactly. And for Teresa, who asked also about cumulative errors, the first error is -2, the second error is -4. So if you have 2 errors, that's 6 off, because the
-6.
first one was -2, the second one's -4, so that's 6 off for 2. If you get to the 3rd error, you're out. It's elimination, and
Right.
it can be error of course or errors of test. Things like failure to take your hand off the rein is an error of test. But there is actually a reason why we take the hand off the rein. We were originally part of the military. We were expecting that the horse would stand and that you could salute your general or your emperor or whomever. You could also use your weapon or a rope or whatever it is you're going to do, and that horse will stand there. And this is why the judge needs to see your hand. It was a military salute. It should be respectful. It should stand immobile. And for those people that are moving while they're saluting, I also nail that. FYI, I'm going to ask Joanne Coy if she backs me up because I'm exhausted with the horse.
Well,
moving.
right, the halt has to be immobile. I mean, that's the quality of the halt. It has to be immobile. So if you're saluting and the horse moves, then you've lost immobility, which is a big problem.
And can I ask your opinion about, there's the horse had immobility, but the rider, there's also the problem of the rider saluting at the wrong time. They're saluting while the horse is moving.
Right.
Which is, in my opinion, wrong.
Right.
Or I'll say, let's make that politically correct. Could be improved.
Yeah, I would comment, wait for a horse to be immobile before saluting.
Excellent comment.
Mm-hmm.
So have we covered Teresa's questions? I think that was it. Yeah. Yeah. So we would mark down dramatically the halt, walk, jog. It's not technically an error, but it is dramatically marked down because you don't perform what is requested as the movement in the test. And that cumulative errors 3 are out.
An interesting comment, if I may, about an error of course. Let's say the rider, I don't know, makes an error, doesn't turn right, turns left instead or whatever. And the judge blows the whistle and says to the rider, hey, you were supposed to turn left there, not right. And the rider says, oh, okay. And the judge says, come on down the center line or whatever and do it again. Judge, the rider turns left or turns right again. Second error, same movement. You can only count that error once. You'd stop the rider again and say, excuse me, but so you wouldn't count that twice on the same movement.
Right. That's
interesting.
The rider, the judge is the assumption there. I think what we're trying to say is the assumption is that they didn't get straightened out from their first error yet. There's still confusion mode. And so we give them the benefit of the doubt. But then if they go and still they get out of that movement, get past that movement and make another one, then we will ring the bell. But
that's right. That's a new error. And the other one that's interesting is if you did not, let's say there's a haunches in, I don't know, from M to E, is that right? M to B, okay, haunches in. And the rider did a shoulder in. I'm just making this up. I don't even know if this is in a test, but you didn't catch the fact that first one was not a haunches in, but a shoulder in. And then they go to the other side, and once again, they don't do the haunches in, but they do a shoulder in. You can't, if you didn't catch it the first time, you can't fault them for the second time because you missed it as a judge.
Yes, that's our mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And we are human, we do occasionally make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And we try very hard, Joanne, not to nail them. And the rules are there to help us to understand that it's our fault if we make a mistake and we shouldn't penalize them. And we're trying very hard to keep it fair for everybody.
Right.
It's possible. I mean, I have by mistake rung the bell, on a competitor before because I thought they were off course.
Yeah.
And, you have to stand up and apologize because, it turns out that they're not. But the truth of the matter is please, I always say to them, I apologize, I'm sorry. And I think to myself, well, I apologize and, I'm sorry that I stopped you, but obviously I was confused and we needed a moment to regroup because if I'm confused, and then I'm not doing a good job. Like I got to get focused on where you're supposed to be so that I can do a good job with the judging. So there's moments that the competitors are off and we ring the bell, everybody regroups and we go on.
Mhm.
And sometime in your lifetime, you will see a judge ring the bell and it wasn't an error, but they needed to regroup also.
Mhm. It happens.
It does.
Human error. It's not robotic.
Yeah, and it can be something just as crazy as, could you please stop for a minute? We just spilled coffee all over your paper and we need to find a new one so that you can progress and I can write on something that's not coffee, you know, like I can still continue to write. So it could be something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It happens.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Or we
this
just discovered there were ground bees over there, so please stop.
Yes,
I had that
yes,
happen. Mhm.
ground bees. Oh my gosh, what a
Mhm.
nightmare. That's not safe.
Yeah, horse after horse wouldn't come up the center line and turn right. And we thought, okay, what's going on? And one of the little runners that was coming across that area got stung by a bunch of ground bees. The horses were recognizing there were ground bees over there and wouldn't make that turn.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's nothing you can do about the first 5 horses that did a bad turn. But,
Right.
you know, but then we just directed the riders to avoid that whole corner.
Super.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I
Showbiz.
thank you all very much. We will let you go and we will see you all next time on the second Tuesday of May, which is the, oh wow, 14th. We'll be well into the month. So the second Tuesday of May is May 14 at 7 o'clock. We will conclude this series and have a lot of fun together. And I thank you so much for participating, everyone, this evening. Your comments and questions were great. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you, Ida.
you are welcome. It's so much fun to talk with all of you. Thank you for being here.